Okay. Erev Tov, everyone. Chanukah Sameach. Good to be back. Studying our Tzurba Mirabanan series on Halacha. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. For those of you here in person, I hope you enjoy the food and drink. And for those that are online watching or listening, I hope you're also enjoying the food and drink. It is Chanukah, and therefore, no question, food is a big part of this holiday. So are lights, but food is a big part of this holiday. We're at the halfway point. Tonight we lit the fifth candle, and we're going to get Mir Hashem to Zot Chanukah on Sunday night, the eighth night, one of the holiest nights of the year, according to many Chachamim, eighth night of Chanukah, but that's coming up. For those of you that are joining for the first time, we've started volume 1 of this series, Tzurba Mirabanan. We've already finished volume number 9. 9, was it 9 or 8? Can't remember what it was. 8, sorry. We finished volume 8, which was the first on the Orach Chaim section of Shulchan Aruch. And our group decided to go back to volume 1 to learn a little bit something different about Yoreh De'ah. And last class, you can look at it on YouTube and watch it on YouTube. It's there. We spoke about Islam and Christianity and what their halachic status is. We came to a conclusion that according to most poskim, only Christianity is considered an avodah zarah today. And we're going to expand on that notion a little bit. And we're going to speak about the certain symbols that represent Christianity and Catholicism, such as the cross. We're going to look at topics of reading books that talk about, the history of these religions and various gods. You study history books and they talk about these gods that are permitted to read that. And then we'll get into deriving some benefit from idolatry, concluding with songs, music. We are in the season of the holidays, the holiday season for the non-Jews, for Christmas. And that's something that is often asked about having enjoyment from the songs and playing the songs, listening to the songs, actively singing the songs. What about even using these songs for our own tefillah? For our own tefillah. Just today, I was listening to a Chanukah mix on Spotify, and there was a medley called the Chanukah Carol Medley. Like Christmas carols, the Chanukah Carol Medley. And what this guy did, he literally took Christmas tunes and put in Chanukah words. Is that something that is permitted? Or should we be contacting this guy and say, hey, take this down. This is halachically wrong. Okay, so I don't know if the Tzurba Mirabanan series is going to address that, but I will address it at the end. But if you're following with us, we're on page number 37. And the Shulchan Aruch begins on source number 16 with regards to items that might have a certain sign of avodah zarah on it, such as a cross. So he writes over here, Shulchan Aruch, Kol hatzlamim shel avodat kochavim hanimsaim bakfarim asurim. Any images of idolatry found in the villages are forbidden. Distama l'shem avodat kochavim na'asu, because we have to assume that these images were made for idolatry. V'hanimsaim bakrachim, but those that are found in cities, mutarim, are allowed. Devadai lenoi na'asu, because they stand for the sake of beauty. Elaim ken omdin al petach hamdina, unless they're at the entrance of the city. V'aya beyad hatzura tzurat makel, o tzipor, o kadur, o sayaf, o atara v'tabat. And an image of a staff or a bird or a ball or a sword and a ring in its hand, those are things that are not allowed. But in essence, what he's trying to say, the Shulchan Aruch, is that there was more religion in the smaller towns and villages. And therefore, things that they did or that they had, items that they had, were worshipped. And therefore, those things are not allowed, versus that of the big city, which are more liberal and more modern. Therefore, unless it's standing at the entrance of the city, you can assume that they're not using these items for worship, and therefore permitted. This is still in play today, very much, where you go to small villages and they practice religion a lot more than the big cities. And the big city, like the Toronto and Montreal, are more liberal cities. Doesn't mean that people don't practice religion here, but don't care for it as much. And any symbols that are around, might be just for decoration, and not necessarily are people actually bowing down to it. So that's the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. So we're going to get to the coins. Yeah, we're going to get to the coins. Again, there's even crosses on coins, right? Those are things that we'll talk about. So Ramah says, Tzurot shemishtachavim lahem, the images that the idolaters bow down to, such as the cross, dinam kedin hatzelem v'asurim belo bitul. They actually have a status of an idol and cannot be used or in any way unless nullified, unless you literally break it apart or do something to it where it no longer has any effect. Aval otan shetolin batzava lezikaron lo mikret tzelem umutar. However, items that hang around their necks as a remembrance are not considered idols. So the Ramah is making a distinction. The cross in a church, okay, where people are actually bowing down to and praying towards, that actually has halachic status. You have to destroy that. If you want any use for that, for example, if you want to use the wood for something, you actually have to destroy it or whatever and nullify it. Versus that of a necklace, okay, that it's not used for idol worship. It's a lezikaron. The guy's Christian or the guy's Catholic, and he wears a cross. So in that situation, okay, it's mutar. Mutar for what? What does it mean? You're not going to wear it, okay? But I guess it doesn't have the status of an avodah zarah like a tzelem, and therefore you can have it lying around or whatever. The Shach, who was one of the commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch, is a little bit more strict. And he says, we said, with regard to the ones that hang around the neck, it's only when we know that they didn't bow down to it. It can't be any worse than when you find an item with an image of idolatry on it, which we know that these vessels would be prohibited if they are of importance. Because since it's ways for people to normally worship this, we have to assume that maybe they worship the vessels. It's possible to say that all of these idolaters who are not steadfast in their worship, that they're making these images only for beauty, and one is permitted to derive benefit from them. However, nevertheless, you cannot keep them because of suspicion. Chashad is suspicion. Especially if they're very noticeable. You can't keep these things because it is a uncertain Torah prohibition. It's possible that even a regular cross that someone is wearing around their neck, being that the cross is an emblem or a symbol where people are actually bowing down to in many, many places, so therefore he would hold that it is prohibited. So he's more strict than the Ramah, and he said you would actually probably have to destroy a cross if you were to see it. Now, that's the opinion of the Shach. Rav Ovadia, on page 38, source 18, has an unbelievable chidush. And look what he says. He says, She'ela, there's a question. Adam nichbad shekibel me'malchut medalit zahav betzurat tzlav. You have a man who received a medallion from the government, okay, the Order of Canada or whatever it is, and he gives him this whole thing. And on the medallion, there is a shape of a cross. And the question that he's asked is leot kavod. It's for the purpose of honor, sign of honor, like this medallion. Would it be permitted for him to wear it or even keep it to his house, in his house to benefit from it? So look what he says. He says, Ulam gam ledat hashach. He says, even according to the Shach, which we just quoted to be very, very strict. Yes, lomar shemedalit zahav betzurat tzlav, hadavar galui v'yadua shenaaset ach v'rak leot kavod ba'alma. This medallion that the guy receives, everybody knows he's receiving it for the purpose of honor. He did something good in his life. He's been given the order of Canada, the order of this, the order of that, and that's why he has it. No one's bowing down to the medallion. So he says, for sure, you have no problem to allow this type of medallion. This is why we're allowed to use coins or keep coins that have a cross on it. Because it's very clear that a person does not worship these coins. And even though they are important items, it would be allowed. And not only that, the great Rishon LeZion Rabbi Yaakov Meir, קיבל מדלית זהב בצורת צלב, he received a golden medallion in the shape of a cross, והיה עונדה על חזהו לכבוד ולתפארת בעת שהיה מבקר אצל הנציב העליון. He would wear it whenever he would walk in front of the highest ruler. ואף הצטלם עם המדליה הזאת. They even took a picture with it. You have the chief rabbi wearing a medallion with a cross. ואין ספק שיסתמך על דברי הפוסקים. No question that this is what he relied on, all these poskim that hold, since it's not being worshipped, then you're allowed to wear it. וכן עיקר להלכה למעשה. The note here at the bottom says that Rav Ovadia is consistent with the common practice, which are crosses that are found in Catholic churches. Those cannot be used in any way. Those are asur. And he would even say that over here, some people, Rav Herschel Schachter quotes Rav Soloveitchik being very strict, that if he was sitting at a table at a restaurant that had the knife and fork and knife set up in a cross, I guess that's something that they used to do. Okay, the first thing he would do is undo the fork and knife to make sure that they're vertical and parallel, rather than keeping that thing. Also, the note here says that Moshe Feinstein allowed collecting stamps, and many stamps have crosses on them. He says that is also allowed. Okay. So that sums up the issue of the cross according to most poskim. As long as the cross is not in a place or where people are worshiping it, okay, you can keep it. You can keep it on your. But you have a stamp with a cross, you have a coin with a cross. Okay, that doesn't mean that Jews should go now to jewelry stores and start buying crosses, because that shows that you care for a chelek avodah zarah. That is not allowed. But to have a medallion or something that has a cross on it, isur. I want to point out that there are many people that are still very strict when it comes to this, and they'll do whatever they can to remove any type of symbol of such sort. I don't know how many people will feel comfortable knowing that they have items in their house that contain a cross on it. But the maaseh, again, like Rav just says, it's okay to keep in your house if you have an item with a cross on it. You have a question?
Yeah. I'm just wondering how there can be any leniency at all, because the Torah explicitly states you shouldn't have any images, regardless of.
It's not make an image. It's not make an image. So to make an image, making an image is for sure not allowed. I would even say that includes in buying an image. That's almost that. But here, the medallion could have an inscription in your name and something like this, and you have some guy who's some warrior, because you were an army fighter, and some warrior who has whatever it is. I'm just envisioning something in my head. Okay, it's not anything in the shape of a T. You gotta throw up. Right. That's, I think, the point that he's making. And even though it may have been engraved purposely, but the people that engraved it did not have any idolatrous thoughts when they did it. If they had idolatrous thoughts, then certainly that would be problematic. Okay. Good. Let's speak about some books, because everyone loves to read. And this is another big question, especially for history buffs, people that like reading about history, people that teach history. This halakha will come very relevant. Says the Rambam, source number 19. Sfarim Rabbim Hibru Ovdei Kochavim Be'avodata Heyach Ikar Avodata Uma Maaseh Mishpatea. There were many books that were composed by idol worshippers teaching about how to worship their particular gods. Okay? And Tzivanu HaKadosh Baruch Hu שלא לקרות באותן הספרים כלל. God commanded us not to read from any of these books at all. ולא נהרהר בה ולא בדבר מדבריה. And we cannot read from these books or meditate on them in any part. So those are the words of the Rambam. Says Rav Moshe, he says, Al kol panim, nevertheless, adin emet delavin ulorot leka isur. He says, if you want to learn about the goddess of Venus, okay? I think there was such a goddess. I think there was that, right? You want to learn about the goddess of Venus. And for the purpose of issuing a halachic ruling, okay? So he says, delavin ulhorot. I want to learn so that I can teach. Then there's no isur, there's no prohibition. אבל מצד היתר זה, אין להתיר אלא לגדולי הדור בתורה וביראת שמיים ולא לסתם בני אדם. He said this would only be allowed for teachers, for Talmidei Chachamim, and rabbis who their job is to teach. So when you have rabbis who are working in Aisha Torah and Or Sameach and NCSY and a lot of Kiruv organizations, right? Rabbis of shuls, and people want to know about these things, okay? It would be permitted for the rabbi or the teacher to study this so that he's able to answer back the students. אבל לקרוא מספרים שמבינים משם שהם דברי הבל ושטות שכותבים שם ששטות זה עשו, דומה וכן ללמד בקורס באופן זה, אין בזה שום איסור. He says, now, if you're going to read from books that you know that all this stuff is bogus and it's all nonsense, or to teach in whatever such a course and it's not, then it's fine. He goes, there's no issue. But anything that was written with the intent of promoting idolatry, you cannot read, like the Rambam says, unless you need to learn it in order to give it back. Then he talks about what I mentioned about the history teacher. הנה בדבר אחד שפרנסתו להיות מורה בבתי לימוד של המדינה בדברי ימי היוונים והרומים. So a person whose job is to teach in schools history about the Romans and the Greeks. Okay, we're in the time of the Greeks, Hanukkah. וצריך גם להגיד שיעורים בענייני דתיהם ועבודת אליהם. He has to teach. He has to know his beings. אם יש בזה איסור דף עינויים, does he have a prohibition of don't turn towards your gods? ואם כן, כשצריך ללמד בקורס שלו ענייני דתיהם והבליהם, צריך לדבר בלשון שיבינו שהם ענייני שטות והבל. When he's teaching it, he needs to teach it in a way to tell them that all these gods are nonsense. Okay? איך שהדבר הבל עשו ודבר הבל זה, אשר אפילו קצת בן דעת ימאס בזה. Where anyone with a bit of sense would find it repulsive. Kacha Amar Rav Nachman Megillah, like Rav Nachman said in Megillah, all mockery is forbidden except mockery of idolatry. That is permitted. All right, so there you go. If you're a history teacher or you like this stuff, if it's for the purpose of teaching and telling other people that it's nonsense, then that is allowed. Otherwise, a person would not be allowed to read any of these books. Not allowed to read any of these books about Roman gods and Greek gods. All that stuff would not be allowed. So if you wanna teach about Jewish history, okay, Jewish history, and to do that, you have to talk about how the Romans worshiped certain gods, or how this emperor considered himself a god. That is permitted because you're teaching Jewish history, and for the sake of limud, it would be allowed. All right. Good? Okay. Moving on. Page 41, source 22. Deriving benefit from idolatry. So, כשם שעבודות כוכבים אסורים בהנאה, just like it's prohibited to derive benefit from idolatry, כך כל ההנאות הבאות ממנה אסורות. Any derivatives of it is not allowed, אפילו אם sarfa, even if the idol was burnt, asur la'anot bechalata ve'efra. You can't use the coals or the ashes. Avar mutar le'anot mishaleveta, but you are allowed to benefit from the flame. So why is this important? Let's see. Gemara tells us, Hamar Rabba Masechet Pesachim. Where do I know? The Tanya says about Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Pazim Rabbi Shua ben Levi Mishum bar kapara. Kol Umar'e ve'reyach en bahem mishum me'ilah. That the sound of instruments in the Bet HaMikdash, the sight and the smell of the ketoret are not subject to misuse. Me'ilah is an avera where misusing holy objects. Okay, for example, if I declare that this Kleenex box is or this cow, this cow is kadosh, is holy, I cannot make Chanukah dinner with this cow now. This cow has to go to the Bet HaMikdash. If I was to use it for any other purpose, it would be considered me'ilah. It would be considered misuse. I'm misusing something holy. So if I was to, what the Gemara is saying, that the sound of the instruments, okay, and the sights or the smell you cannot transgress me'ilah through it. However, me'ilah udeleika ha'isur ha'ika, but there is an isur, a prohibition by rabbinic law. So why is this important? Let's look at the Gemara. Shabbat. Katav ha'me'alech tachat hatzura v'tachat yuknayot. If regarding writing that is under a picture or graven images, asur likroto b'Shabbat. You're not allowed to read on Shabbat unless a person read business documents. But regarding the idolatrous image itself, af bechol asur leistakel ba. You're not even allowed to look at it. Mishum shenemar al tifnu el ha'elilim. Because the pasuk says, don't turn towards the gods. My Talmudah, what do we learn from here? Amar Chanin al tifnu el midatchem. Do not push God, al tefanu el, out of your mind. Don't push God out of your mind by looking at an avodah zarah. And that's why the Gemara Masechet Brachot says, Haya me'alech pasuk shel avodah zarah, nitratzeh le'ariach al zeh choteh. If someone walked into the marketplace of non-Jews and wanted to smell all the spices that they were burning or incense that they were burning for the sake of their gods, and you wanted to smell that and you were enjoying it, you are considered a sinner. You should not have had any intention to smell it. And that's what Shulchan Aruch says here. Asur, and this is going to lead us to the music. Asur lishmoa kelei shir shel avodat kochavim o leistakel benoi avodat kochavim. You're not allowed to hear music of idolatry or to gaze at the beauty of idolatry. Because you're benefiting from the sight. But if it's without intent, it's allowed. And the Shach codifies also you can't smell that of idolatry. Now, what does this? What does this mean? What does this mean? Does this include all types of non-Jewish music, or is it just that of idolatry? It seems from the Shulchan Aruch that it's idolatrous music. So music that they would play in churches, I'm just using churches, but it's other types of houses of idolatry. If any music that will praise their gods. So there's a lot of music out there that is, very much praising Mr. Jesus, and that stuff would not would be allowed. Would not be allowed. So to purposely listen to that is not allowed. So now the question is, where does Christmas music stand? Where does this fit in the so it's not clear from this halacha, because the halacha says you can't listen to music of idolatry. So is Christmas today something that's an idolatrous practice or not? Certainly there are parts of the world that still treat Christmas as a very much idolatrous practice, probably in those little kfarim, those little villages, and there's still, you see the movies of those groups coming to the houses and singing Christmas carols. I don't know what they're called, a little choir or whatever it is. Certainly those people have a very, very strong religious attachment to the holiday, and they're singing these carols that actually contain lyrics of avodah zarah. That would not be allowed. The name Christmas on its own has the word of the Shem of Avodah Zarah, which you cannot say. So that also could be an issue, but that we're not going to talk about today. But Lemaaseh, a lot of the melodies you hear on the radio today, okay, you can argue don't have a idolatrous connection to it. Okay, You better not run, you better not hide. Santa Claus is coming to town. Okay, now there's the whole history of Santa Claus, okay, and who he was, and yes, it might be sourced with pagan practices. It is sourced in pagan practices, but that's not what people are thinking about when they're singing that song. So to hear that song wouldn't be asur. I think there's another issue in general of probably just going around and enjoying and going around purposely playing this music. I don't think that's a healthy thing to do for your neshama. But is it asur to listen to that music? No, I would say no. And certainly walking into a mall and hearing that music, you don't have to leave the mall. That even for idolatrous music, Shulchan Aruch says is allowed because I'm walking in a place. That's not my intent to do. The Tzurba goes on to talk about what about using this music, using the tunes for our own tefillah. Okay, so while we know, as it says on top of 43, you can't stand outside of a church and listen to the music because that is clearly idolatrous music, what they're singing in there and playing in there. Okay, but can I use that tune for myself for something else? Which is what I started the shiur with, is can this guy who's making Hanukkah carols, okay, in the tune of these Christmas carols, is that allowed? So says the Sefer Hasidim, Lo yelamed adam legalach otiyot. One is not allowed to teach a priest the letters, the Hebrew letters. V'lo yenagen lefanav zemer na'im, nor should he play a nice tune in front of him. Pen yenagen agalach ba'avodah zarah shelo, lest he use it in his service of idolatry. Nigun, oto nigun. V'kol shemenagdim mifnei avodah zarah, any tune used for avodah zarah, lo yaseh oto nigun la'akadosh baruch hu. Do not use that tune in any way or any context for God. Says the Rama. Also, shaliach tzibur hamnabel piv, a shaliach tzibur that defiles his mouth, or shemeranen b'shirei anochrim, he sings the songs of Gentiles. Memachin beyado shelo la'asot ken, we rebuke him that he doesn't do it. And if he doesn't listen, we pull him down. Get out. You're fired. You can't be chazan anymore if you're using non-Jewish songs. B'shirei nochrim, Mishnah Berurah says, what does it mean with the songs of Gentiles? He clarifies. It has to be music that the Gentiles are using to sing to their idols. That's what's not allowed. Ubach b'tshuva siman kuf chav zayin katav davka benigun shmichal lazeh. That's the tune that is prohibited. Okay, and the Bach is in 32. Ma shemezamrim bebate knesiyot benigunim shemezamrim b'hem bebet tefilatam. All these tunes that are sung in synagogues that are taken from tunes of the idol worship homes. Nireh she'en oser ela davka beoto nigunim shemiuchadim le'avodat kochavim. Only the tunes that are not that are used for idol worship. So already from the time of the Bach and the time of Ramah, they know there's Jews that have been singing these songs in Bet Knesset. This is something that seemed to be common because they're getting the questions of whether or not you can do it. And they said as long as it is not idolatrous or they were singing for Avodah Zarah, it is allowed. And Rav Ovadia agrees with this. Rav Ovadia agrees with this. And he says, in 33, of course, a tune that has no substance. Rav Ovadia was known to listen to Kulthum, famous Egyptian singer. Even though the Gemara that we learned just a few minutes ago said that the sound of music is prohibited, he says, Hainu be'oto kol isur atzmo. That was only regarding the forbidden sound itself. But when you're transferring the tune to holiness, panim chadashot ba'u lekan. It has a new identity. Ve'en shum isur badavar. There's no issue whatsoever. כשהשליח ציבור עושה זאת מתוך כוונה טהורה, and now you have the Chazan, he has a tremendous כוונה, לשבח וזמר להשם יתברך הבוחר בשירי זמרה. Wow. It's as if the song didn't exist anymore. So what Rav Ovadia is saying is, he's not here, so I can't clarify this. But he seems to be saying a tune that was used for idol worship, okay, can be used, arguing with the Rama and the Bach, because they said only tunes that were idol worship. He says no. The moment you put it into different words in your tefillah, it has a new entity. Panim chadashot. It's a tremendous chidush by Rav Ovadia in this case. Rav Moshe is a little bit more strict, and he says, "Hine hanigunim shemezamrim anotzim bebet tefilatam vaday asu leshomam." The tunes that are sung in the churches are definitely forbidden to listen to. Afa yede radio, paragraph or phonograph, by radio or phonograph. Not only the current tunes, even the older ones are not allowed. This can bring a person to heresy. And not only that, but you could be mentioning the names of God, and that is you'll be oser lav lo yishama al picha. There's a separate prohibition of not pronouncing the name of a foreign god, and you could come across that if you say these songs. Yeah, sing these songs.
When it comes to that specific prohibition, I read it, the word used is support, like remember. So should we be stricter and not say it, but do anything that can bring back the memory of the Zara?
That's why I won't recommend anyone to probably even do this. Okay, just because I'm allowed to, doesn't mean that some person should go and do it. So you have to think, like how would it go? Rav just says I can do it. So now the next guy is going to come Chazan this Shabbat, because this is the Shabbat before Christmas. He's going to get up and he's going to now start singing Christmas songs. And you say, Rav Ovadia says, I can do it. That's not, I'm referring. He's there to tell you that halachically it's fine. I'm sorry? But don't do it. Just because it's allowed doesn't mean it's kosher. So that's a question you always have to ask yourself. And Baruch Hashem, you have. So now, what about that guy? What is that guy on Spotify who's playing Hanukkah carols? Halachically, he's fine. If so, you can argue that the Ashkenazim are a little bit more strict if that specific song and tune was a tune of Avodah Zarah. But Rav Ovadia for sure says not a problem. It's not a problem, right? There are a lot of people that made their parnasa with similar things. The Maccabees. I want to clarify. The Maccabees didn't take songs of Avodah Zarah. They took non-Jewish songs. They took non-Jewish songs on the radio and transformed them into Jewish songs, especially for Hanukkah. That's how they became famous. Is taking songs like Latka Recipe, right? One of their famous ones. They're actually in town, the Maccabees. They're in town. They're down south for Shabbat. They're coming to our school tomorrow for our concert. So, but yeah, they became famous. So that for sure is not an issue. They're just taking non-Jewish music and taking the tune and putting Hebrew words on it. The issue is idolatrous music. But like we said, Rav Ovadia says it would be okay. No, why? Because classical music is used specifically. If it's playing in a church, then yeah. For sure they are. Like 90%. No, how far you want to extend that? Because they sang "Happy Birthday" in the church, I can't sing "Happy Birthday" in the thing, right? If it's something that is directed towards Avodah Zarah, then that's
But it's like
What if it's instrumental?
Like-
anything from
Like one, I don't know. One comes to my head now, and I probably I'm not. I'm only sharing it for the purpose of teaching, and that's why I allowed. But there's this song that is played now a lot, especially during this time of season, the time of year. Holy Night. Na, 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 na. You just listen to the word, you know that's idolatrous. Like 100%, that's idolatrous. You might not see it, but you can tell. Okay, that's an idolatrous song that they're clearly playing in the churches.
That's just the words. What the one point I'm saying is even stuff that was used in the past, let's say in the church for the worship and the service, whatever. Like a lot of these
Yeah, he is more strict. He is more strict, yes.
classical music, they're composing it for the purpose of using it in the church.
If it was for the purpose of idolatry, then yes, that's what Moshe is saying.
But it's like it's been a lot. I think most of it, a lot of these composers are like very religious people, especially back in the day, and they're making music. Even if it's not fully for there, most of the time the stuff was that's where it was like publicized in the churches. So even though it's not explicit, you can't say, well, look, Silent Night, they're clearly talking about Jesus, so classical pieces don't have lyrics. So how do you know? This stuff is used. A lot of this stuff, it's just used in churches.
Yeah.
That's a problem with that team. They play it frequently in churches.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
How do I translate listen to classical music according to the
Well, again, you would have to know where that classical music stems from. If you want to be strict like Rav Moshe, then maybe you shouldn't be. But
strictly classical music and this exactly, it's purely Jean-Sébastien Bach is renowned for that. He has a requiem.
Yeah.
At no end. But generally, the great ones like Owen and they don't have much of that. So the two or three composers that
yeah,
Well, he has a point because Bach, not the rabbi, but the composer, said that he makes his music for the purpose of praising his God.
yeah.
And even though there's no lyrics, that's still the purpose he made it for.
So that's an interesting question to listen to. What?
Depends on the composer.
Depending on, yeah.
But even if it's not, like, you have to know. What if some churches you don't know what they're doing every. It has to be,
We don't.
it has to be popular.
And that's why, like I said, it's not something that you go and chase after. Like, you're almost like playing with fire here, But if you listen to non-Jewish music on the radio, and I'm not making this a discussion about non-Jewish music, but if you listen to non-Jewish music, and there are more modern churches that are playing a regular song on the radio to get people into it, or dancing, whatever it is, that doesn't make it an idolatrous song, just because they play in it. But more of the intent, like if what Jeremy's saying is correct, that the intent of Bach was to create his music for the purpose of worship, then yeah, that's a more she'elah, right? And they're playing that till today in churches. That's a problem.
Yeah. An example of Mendelssohn composer, the wedding
Yeah.
tune, it's some people are against it, and some says, it's only a tune.
Yeah, it's only a tune.
There's no words or anything.
Yeah,
La 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 la.
yeah, that's right. It's a good question. Good question, guys. Chazak. All right, let's finish the chapter, and we'll finish the shiur. The last section on chapter 1 is on praising an idol worshiper. So there's a mitzvah in the Torah that says lo tehonem. You cannot show them favor. The Gemara Masechet Avodah Zarah says, what does it mean lo tehonem? Lo titen lahem chen. Says don't give them favor by praising them. This actually supports Rav. Wow. He goes, how beautiful is this non-Jewish woman? Meiteve. Meaning a person not allowed to say that. So Gemara says, wait a second. There was once a certain Rosh Gamliel, he was on a step on Harabait, and he saw this beautiful non-Jewish woman. Amar, and he said, Marabu Ma'asecha Hashem. He said, how great are your works, God. Ve'af Rabbi Akiva, even we know Rabbi Akiva, Ra'a Eshet Turnus Rufus Harasha, he saw the wife of Turnus Rufus. Rak Shahak ubacha. He spat, he laughed, and he cried. He spat because she was created from a putrid drop. Sachak, he laughed. He laughed because she saw that she was gonna. He saw she was gonna convert and marry her. Bachan, he cried because he saw that this beauty would be consumed by dirt after she died. Right. So what's the question? You said Rav says you're not allowed to look at a beautiful Gentile woman, okay? Or you can't say mana'eh. You can't say how beautiful this woman is because that would be praising. And comes Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. He's standing on a step and he sees this gorgeous model from California, and he says, Marabu Ma'aseh Hashem. So that's the question. So Gemara answers, right? Gemara says, he says, where I lost my place. Rav Odiyah de Kamodeh, he says, Rav, what would he do? He was saying, Kamodeh, he was giving thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for creating beautiful people. He wasn't commenting on the woman. Because why would Rabban Shimon Gamliel, a great tzaddik, talk about the beauty of a woman? He was commenting on Hashem creating something beautiful. Right? Someone sees something beautiful, a beautiful creature, should say a beracha. Shulchan Aruch says, Asur lesaper b'shivchan shel ovdei kochavim. You're not allowed to relate praise of an idol worshiper. Afilu lomar kama naya oved kochavim zeh b'tzurato. Can't even say how beautiful this figure is. All the more so, praising his deeds. But if you're saying it for the purpose to say, wow, Hashem, unbelievable, then it's allowed. And here the Tzitz Eliezer writes, we'll read it in English because we're a bit late on time. His Honor asked how it's permitted to praise the wise people of the nations of the world when they discover or invent something new in any of the wisdoms, as we have found the Rambam does in his praise of Aristotle, and like as was the custom of many other Gdolei Israel. You know, so you have Elon Musk. You know, look at all the things that he created. Well, I'm not allowed to praise him. He's changed the world with many other things, the inventions that he's done. So he said, I considered the issue and saw that indeed it is explicit in the words of the Rambam, and this is his language. We have been warned not to have any mercy on idol worshippers and not to praise anything that's unique to them. It is clear from the wording of the Rambam, as we've seen above, that the prohibition only applies to a Gentile who is an idol worshipper. I saw this as well in the Sefer HaChinuch, who is also precise in his wording when he states, therefore, by our prevention of finding any benefit and favor for idol worshippers in our thoughts and speech, we will prevent ourselves from connecting with them and chasing after their fancies and learning anything from their evil ways. So it has to be someone who's actually worshiping idols. But the Shach says, no, anybody is included in this, and so did the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch says the same thing. And the reason is, Chokhmat Adam, here in 38, Asur lesaper b'shivchan lomar kama naya avodah zara, v'kal v'chomer lesaper b'sheva ma'asav v'chaved rachav. All the more so to praise one's deeds and endear his ways. Shekol zehu bichal lo techonem, lo titen lahem hen. Don't give them any favor. Don't show them any favor. All of this is so that we don't come close to them and learn from their ways. And this is something to think about, because we do come across a lot of our of non-Jews in our lives. It doesn't mean a person cannot give them positive feedback. You have a worker who's non-Jewish. Good job. You did a good job on the project. That's fine. But if it comes to talk about, wow, unbelievable. These things come about. You talk about sports athletes, right? It's not just beauty, physical beauty, but sometimes it's physical physique. It's a big question on whether or not you can glorify a LeBron James and talk about his unbelievable, right? If anything, this is very much what the Greeks wanted us to notice about them, was their physicality and the beauty of the body, and forcing the Jewish people to Hellenize and worship the body, and therefore when we go out and we speak praises and praises and praises about non-Jews and their abilities to do all these wonderful, wonderful things, lo techonem. And like we said, it's a biblical prohibition, lo techonem. It's not a rabbinical thing. So why? Because You don't want too much kirva. You don't want too much closeness within one another. Okay, gentlemen, this concludes the first chapter of volume 1. We are, at least I'm on a winter break now for the next little bit, but we'll continue when the new year starts. That's a new secular year. And speaking of a secular year, that is the first subject of chapter 2, is using the secular calendar. Okay, is that something that we should be using, or maybe we're not using the secular calendar? Maybe we got to stick to 5786. You're gonna have to wait and see for that one. So there you go. All right, good lead off for next time. Have a wonderful night, everyone.